If it feels like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall when you're creating social media content, or maybe you're creating content and it's not getting engagement and you feel like something's wrong and you feel like you're wasting your time, I'm glad you're here watching this video because I am going to give you 5 tactics that I use in my own business and then I teach my clients so that they can set up their social media correctly, create content correctly that actually moves your subscribers and your followers through your lead to client journey so that more of them become clients, and doing it all in far less time. So if that is something you are interested in, stay tuned. And if you are new here, welcome to the Wellness Business Hub channel. I am Lori Kennedy, the founder and creator of the Wellness Business Hub, and we work with practitioners and coaches to mentor them so that they can transform lives for a living, all on their own terms. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 tactics. They're short, they're sweet, and they are very easy to implement. Ready to dive in? Let's go. So I thought about this episode in sort of bite-size portions, and I'm going to start with the purpose of social media. As I said in the intro, I think that social media is such an enigma for most practitioners and coaches. You know you need to do it. At this point, it's 2024. We're halfway through 2024. It's not optional, right? Having your Facebook and your Instagram and LinkedIn are really not optional anymore. Because when somebody Googles your name, those are the first pages that are going to pop up. And if you're not existent, and if it's not current, and if it's not relevant to your online coaching business, the person scrolling, the person finding your name is going to go to the next person in line. And so let's talk about the purpose of social media. And then I want to talk about the one critical factor that you need to make social media work for you. And then I'm going to dive on into the tactics. I wanted to do a little bit of context first, just because so many practitioners and coaches are new to social media. And I don't think you understand how it really works. So I want to explain it to you. So what's the purpose of social media? Number 1, it's for your brand. Social media is like your storefront. Pretend you have a shop. And if your storefront is outdated, if your storefront doesn't even have the name of the store, if your storefront has like janky looking, mannequins with weird clothes, no one's going to come into your store. Like, your storefront needs to be the thing that attracts the people to you. It needs to be representative of the quality and the experience that you will provide inside of your business. And so social media is very much your storefront. And so whether that's your Facebook personal page, your Facebook business page, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, it's your storefront. When somebody lands on your social media page, they are making a judgment. They are deciding if they want to enter your store, or they're deciding if they want to keep scrolling. So number 1, the purpose of social media is to use it to have a beautiful display window, so that it is enticing for people to come on into your store. So your brand is very important when it comes to social media. The next purpose of social media is lead gen. Using social media to build up your audience, whether that is inside of your Facebook group or on Instagram, it does not matter. Social media is one of the most powerful ways that you can build an audience. Number 3, nurture. So after you've built an audience, after you've used social media to entice your ideal prospects to come into your storefront, and you're building this audience, what are you going to do? You need to nurture them. Again, it's the same way that when you're in a store, that salesperson comes up to you and is very kind and is very low key. Hey, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? What are you looking for today? And you're like, oh, I'm looking for, a dress. I have to go to a bridal shower. And then they're asking you questions, what's your vibe? What do you like? What do you feel comfortable in? Do you have a price range? They're getting to know you. They're getting to know your likes and your dislikes. The same thing happens in social media. right? Your content and your engagement and your conversation in the comments is that nurture piece. And so that is a really important piece of how to make social media work for you. It's that nurture piece. And then the last piece is engagement, right? What is the purpose of social media? Really, the purpose of social media is to create conversations. And those conversations then lead that prospect to the next step in the lead to client journey, right? And so when you're first starting, it's very likely that you will have low engagement and you will think that something is wrong. And nothing, in fact, is wrong. It's just that if you only have, I shouldn't say only, if you have 50 followers, the majority of those followers don't see your content because of the way that the algorithm works. So it's not like you have low engagement, it's that you have low reach because of the algorithm. And so we're not going to worry about that, right? We're not going to worry about that. So if you have, for example, 50 followers on Instagram and only 10% of people that follow you see your content, that means only 5 out of 50 people are seeing your content. And so maybe 1 out of those 5 people is going to hit that that like button or comment. It's not that you have low engagement. It's that you are at the beginning stages, and it is relative to your audience size, and it is also relative to the reach that you have, which will also be low when you're first starting. So that's the purpose of social media, to establish your brand, to generate an audience, to nurture that audience, and to engage that audience, to move them to that next stage in the lead to client journey. And so now let's talk about the one critical factor that you need to make social media work for you. And so this is really important. I speak to practitioners and coaches every day, and they tell me it feels like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall. They tell me it feels like splatter paint. They feel like they're pulling content out of their ass. Like there's no rhyme or reason for it. There's no strategy behind it. Most practitioners and coaches know they need to produce content on social media, but they don't really understand the connection between this one critical factor and the purpose of social media. And so the one critical factor that you need to have crystal clear in order for you to have social media strategies work for you is a persistent, painful problem. You need to have a niche, an ideal client, and a persistent, painful problem. That is the one critical factor that is needed in order to make social media work. I audit so many people's Instagram feeds and Facebook group content and even Facebook ads, meta ads. And if I can't tell in the first sentence or two who your ideal client is and the persistent painful problem that you solve, I can guarantee that not much is happening for you in terms of social media. And the reason that is because we pay attention to things that provide us with value. Whether that value is a good laugh, whether that value is gossip, whether that value is the curtains that you've been looking for, whether that value is validating your lived experience by talking about something like hot flashes, whether that value is providing insight into why you feel so shitty in the first place, whether that value is providing, like I said, validation that you are not in fact crazy and that, you did wake up one morning feeling like a completely different person because your hormones shifted overnight. Like, the reason that people stop their scroll, the reason that people hit that subscribe button, the reason that people comment is because there's some value attached to it. And so if you don't have this one critical factor met, if you don't have the persistent painful problem and the ideal client and the condition nailed, you are probably speaking in generalities. The content that you are creating is not hyper specific, and it is therefore not providing value to anyone specifically because it is non-specific, because you're talking about wellness in such a general fashion that it's not really resonating with any given person. And so think about how people use social media. They scroll. Either they search for something specific, like, I searched the other day for Canadian influencers who sell off Amazon because I'm so sick and tired of falling in love with pieces that don't ship to Canada. It's a problem. It's not a problem in the way that menopause is a problem, but it's still a problem. And so I was using Instagram to find Canadian Amazon influencers, and they are few and far between, but nevertheless, so either we are searching for something that we are interested in, like a health coach that specializes in PCOS, or I was also looking for a Canadian menopause doctor, for example. So we use social media in the way that we now use Google. And so the way that the algorithm works is that the algorithm is going to put content that people are searching for in front of them. And so if you are general, if you are non-specific, the algorithm doesn't know what to do with your content. It doesn't know who to show it to. It doesn't know where to put it. And so likely it doesn't get much reach. But when you are hyper specific, the algorithm understands that you are an expert in, let's just say, PCOS, weight loss for women with PCOS. And it's going to show your content to people who are searching for weight loss with PCOS, for people who've consumed PCOS content, for people who click on stuff with PCOS. Now your hyper-specific content is going to be shown to people who are actively searching for and consuming that type of content. And so think of how people use social media. We have 3 seconds to be able to grab someone's attention. And so if you are speaking in generalities, if your content is all over the place, if your brand is an ugly storefront that looks kind of like it's a little bit run down, it's like a little, maybe you're not even open for business, like no one's really certain, you're not going to get the click, you're not going to get the follow, you're not going to be able to attract your ideal client. And so this one critical factor that must be met in order for your social media to work for you is really having that niche, that ideal client, the condition that the niche is suffering from, like PCOS, like perimenopause, and then how that condition is causing a persistent painful problem. And so if you're stuck with this, I actually have a course called Start From Scratch. It is a short course. It will help you get crystal clear so that you can set up your brand and your niche and your ideal client and all of your social media in under 7 days. So if you would like more details about that, you can go ahead and find me on Instagram. I'm at Lori Kennedy Inc. Send me a DM with the words Start From Scratch, and I will send you the link and you can look it over. So having a solvable problem, right? This condition that your ideal client is suffering from, having a problem that people will pay to solve is that one critical factor. Even if that one persistent painful problem that people will pay to solve isn't physical. In Zero to Clients, which is my 6-month all-inclusive coaching program, we work with practitioners and coaches in every niche you can think of. And oftentimes when I work with practitioners and coaches, they solve the problem of overwhelm. They work with women who are overwhelmed, and we need to flesh that out. So what are they overwhelmed with? Because that is the solvable problem. It's not believable to solve overwhelm. We're all like, overwhelm is a state of being. Yes, you can change the mindset around it, but at first hop, that's not super believable. So we have to say, okay, what are you overwhelmed with? So for example, what are moms overwhelmed with? Guilt, resentment, the mental load. So when I work with practitioners and coaches who want to do overwhelm, we say, okay, it's the mental load. That's usually where we land. And then your coaching program solves the overwhelm caused by the mental load, because now we can implement strategies to alleviate the mental load. which will then, of course, alleviate the overwhelm. Right? And so if the condition is, I work with moms who are burnt out, the persistent painful problem is feeling overwhelmed by the mental load. And so now we can use social media to attract moms who are overwhelmed by the mental load of motherhood, who are feeling resentful, who are feeling guilty. And now you have a condition that you can solve, right? Now we can sort of pinpoint, okay, well, the reason you're feeling overwhelmed is because of the mental load, and we can solve for that. And so when it comes to social media, even before you get really good at creating content, we have to know what you can solve for. We have to have this one critical success metric met in order for you to be able to even brainstorm the type of content that will then attract the ideal client into your world. And that is why I believe practitioners and coaches struggle so much with social media, is because you don't have clarity and specificity on your niche and your ideal client and the condition and the persistent painful problem. Because if you did, then your ideal client becomes this muse. It becomes this, this sort of fixture in your mind. And for me, when I create content, I put my hand on my heart and I say, okay, what does my ideal client need to hear from me today? What does my ideal client need to know? Like, I'm creating this for them. I'm not doing it for me. I already know this stuff, right? You already know this stuff. So it's not for you, and you're not teaching a class on it. You are inviting your ideal client into the conversation, and it is very much a conversation. And so when you don't have clarity on this one success criteria, it will likely feel like not a good time. Like you're not creating valuable, impactful content because you're grasping at straws. And the last thing that I want to touch on before we move into the tactics is that creating social media content will take up a substantial amount of your time, and that's okay. It's not a waste of time. Using social media, learning the etiquette on Instagram versus the etiquette in your Facebook group versus the etiquette on LinkedIn is one of the best ways to grow your audience, both by using paid ads and organic. It's one of the best ways to grow your audience and nurture them and engage with them and to move them through your lead to client journey. And learning these 5 tactics, or I should say implementing these 5 tactics that I'm about to share with you, will help you optimize your social media workflow so that you can create more content that actually works in far less time. So let's dive into the tactics. Tactic number 1 might seem obvious, but I'm going to go through it anyway because I cannot tell you how many practitioners and coaches do not have their social media optimized. I should say do not have their social media set up properly and therefore optimized. So tactic number 1 is social setup. Correct social setup. So I'm talking your Facebook personal page, I'm talking your Facebook business page, and I'm talking your Instagram. I'm not so much talking about LinkedIn because you can leave that till later. Although LinkedIn is also highly searchable for your name. So yes, I'm actually let's talk about LinkedIn too. So your social pages. I know that a lot of practitioners and coaches feel weird about using their personal Facebook page to represent their business. With all due respect, just get over it. Like your Aunt Sally and your cousin Molly, like if they're not going to be supportive of you, they can unfriend you. Like we don't care. And if you want to continue to use your personal Facebook page for family updates and things of that nature, you can use the settings when you post any content that's actually personal, that you don't want to, represent your business. You can just show it to the people who matter. You can make it private. You can do a whole bunch of things with settings. So we are going to use your Facebook personal page, your Facebook business page, your Instagram, and your LinkedIn as your storefront. We're going to pretend that you have 4 different storefronts, and each one of them has to be nicely outfitted. Otherwise, when somebody comes across it, they're going to be like, oh, maybe this store went out of business. Because that's what people think, right? When you don't have updated content, when you have a weirdo profile picture that's like your cat or, some like logo or something like that, people think you're out of business. It doesn't look like your storefront is open. And so what we want to make sure of when we are setting up social media profiles and optimizing pages is that your name is there, specifically on your Instagram. So if you have a business name like I do, for example, the Wellness Business Hub, nobody cares. Nobody cares what your business name is. They want to know who you're talking to. And so specifically on Instagram, please make sure that your name is there. If your handle is your business, cool, that's fine. But we want to make sure that your name is there, that you have a gorgeous looking photo. It's very easy these days to take a beautiful photo. You can use your phone, put it to portrait mode, and take a bunch of pictures until you find one that you like. But make sure that your hair is off your face, your hair is done, the lighting is good. You don't have to have makeup on, but you don't want to look like you just rolled out of bed, because this is somebody's first impression. You wouldn't go to your store looking disheveled. So we don't want to show up like that necessarily in our profile picture, right? For my brand, I've built into my brand that I don't wear makeup, that I'm not going to get like fancy, but I'm not going to show up online like a disheveled mess. I'm going to show up as I am. This is exactly, as I am. I'm not wearing makeup, right? And that's fine. But again, it's impressions, right? If your storefront looks like a hurricane just passed through, most likely people aren't going to come into your store. And so we want to represent ourselves online well, right? We want to make sure that we are representing well. So name, professional photo, the bio. So let's make the bio your elevator pitch. I work with women who are struggling to lose weight because they have PCOS. Very clear. And then any links that you have, I would not put a ton of links. What is the next step that you want them to take? Is it to subscribe to your lead magnet? Is it to subscribe to your webinar? Where do you want them to go next? And just have 1 or 2 links. So again, Start from Scratch is my course that walks you through how to set up your niche and how to set up this professional brand in under 7 days. So if you want more info about that, you can send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Lori Kennedy Inc. and ask me for the Start from Scratch link. Okay, tactic number 2. So you need next step marketing assets. This is where you're going to have what's called a call to action. Every single post should have either a call to action or a call to comment. This way, you are eliciting engagement. And so I want you to think about your personal page, your Facebook business page, your Instagram, your LinkedIn. What is your lead to client journey? Where are you sending that social media follower next, right? Where are you sending your audience? So the call to action is the instructions that you give the reader that moves them to that next step, which is typically a marketing asset. So a lead magnet, a Facebook group, a webinar, your online calendar, where are they going? And so social media, specifically Instagram, your Facebook personal page, LinkedIn, these are ways to build up your audience. Well, you don't want to just keep them on Instagram. You want to move them to your email list. You want to move them into a call. Where are you moving them to? And so when you think of creating social media content, the way that I create social media content is I actually start at the end and I say, where am I sending this person? Right? Are they going to go to a lead magnet? Are they going to go to a webinar? Do I want them to book a call? Where am I sending them? And that will then have some influence over the type of content that I am creating, because I know what the call to action is. I know what the next step is. And so every single post that you have either should have a call to action, meaning you are taking them to a marketing asset, or a call to comment if you don't have a marketing asset. So here are two examples. Let's say you are, a health coach and you do weight loss for women with PCOS, and you're talking about 3 foods that help to regulate blood sugar. And you say, I have, if this is something that you struggle with and you want to learn more about foods that can help you regulate your blood sugar, then click comment guide below, and I will send you over a link for my free guide where I go through in detail more foods that help regulate your blood sugar. Now, if you don't have a lead magnet yet, it will sound like this. It will sound, if you struggle to, regulate your blood sugar and you are, get a case of the hangries, tell me in the comments what time you typically feel hangry, and I can send you some resources via a DM. So now you are creating engagement either way, whether you have a marketing asset to send them to or not. But we want to make sure that every single piece of content that you publish has a CTA, right? It has either a CTA or a CTC, right? A call to action to a marketing asset or a call to comment. And that's really important because we want to get our audience used to taking an action and used to engaging, and we want them to move to that next step in your lead to client journey. Tactic number 3, content pillars and content planning. Content pillars are my favorite thing. They have radically reduced the overwhelm of I don't know what to post and I don't know when to post and what should I do and how should I brainstorm. It is a strategy that gives you some context for your brainstorming. Now, I will say that it is going to be very difficult to come up with ideas for each content pillar if you do not have that one success criteria met, which is your ideal client, the condition that they have, and the triple P, which is the persistent painful problem. You're not going to be able to come up with, viral hooks. You're not going to be able to come up with headlines or, stories or high quality content because you don't have that muse, you don't have that anchor, you don't know who you're creating this for, and so you're grasping at straws. So let's assume that you have an ideal client, a condition that they have, and the triple P, the persistent painful problem. Content pillars will now help you organize content creation, and it actually makes brainstorming hooks and ideas very simple. So this is my 5x5 content pillar strategy. And it's 5x5 because it's 5 pillars by 5 days a week. And so Monday is about me. So this can be, about you personally, about you professionally, from a credibility standpoint, from an authority standpoint. So Monday, the content pillar is about me. Tuesday is education. So this is where you can talk about the root cause. This is where you can talk about symptoms. This is where you can talk about mistakes that they've made. This is where you can give them specific tips. Wednesday is inspiration. So this is where you can share client wins. This is where you can share motivation. This is where you can share your wins. This is where you can use your life to be aspirational in nature. Thursday is program showcase. So this is where you promote your offers. This is where you talk about what makes you different. This is where you talk about your protocol. This is where you talk about how you get client results. And then Friday is lifestyle and fun. So this is where you get to be you. This is where you get to show your grass. This is where you get to garden. This is where you get to show your process of how you handle life. If you play games with your kids, like this is where people get to see that you are a real human being. And so now when you have your ideal client and you know who your ideal client is and you have that condition that they are suffering from and the persistent painful problem, now you can go and brainstorm content under each content pillar that will grab their attention. So you can think of hooks that will grab their attention, and then you're going to tack on that call to action or that call to comment at the end of the caption. So we start with the marketing asset, then we go and we brainstorm content for each content pillar. And now, tactic number 4, now we are going to repurpose that content. And so when I started doing this, it was pretty mind blowing and it felt like I was cheating because it had been sort of ingrained in me that I can't repurpose, that that's lazy, that I have to create all this content from scratch. And that's just not true. Especially now with AI, like you can repurpose a piece of content so many different ways. And so what I'm about to share with you is going to blow your mind. I'm going to walk you through how to use one piece of content, repurpose it for each content pillar, and then repurpose it again, each pillar 3 different times using different creative. So when I say different creative, what I'm talking about is a reel, a carousel, or a static post. Now, reels and carousels don't do so well in Facebook groups. Carousels don't do well on Facebook because it just looks weird. So when I'm talking about repurposing, I'm mainly talking about repurposing Instagram content, but you can certainly turn a carousel into a static post. You can definitely post reels inside of Facebook groups. They just do better on Instagram. And so we have our content pillars. So I'm going to pick a different niche. So the niche now that I'm going to use as an example to demonstrate to you how to take one idea, one symptom, and repurpose it many different times for each content pillar. So the niche is perimenopause. The ideal client is a woman over 40 with perimenopausal symptoms. The condition is obviously perimenopause and her changing hormones. And the triple P that is most prevalent is hot flashes. It's the persistent painful problem. It's causing sleep disturbances. It's reducing productivity. It's just bad. And if you've ever had a hot flash, you know that they are bad and you would do anything to not have them anymore. And so this is how I would repurpose it. So Monday, which is the About Me, the headline is how I got rid of my hot flashes in just 7 days. That's about me. Tuesday's education. Do this if you want to get rid of your hot flashes and sleep through the night. Wednesday is inspiration. How my client Jane got rid of her hot flashes. Thursday is program showcase. Got hot flashes and can't sleep? Read this. And then it's about the program and why it works and how it works to reduce hot flashes. Friday, lifestyle and fun. Headline, the worst time to have a hot flash is when ... And then you could do something like a carousel and it literally just shows like 9 different, like when you're showering, when you're having sex, when you're doing this, it's like the worst time is any time, right? And you can turn that into like a really fun, tell me in the comments, when you mostly get hot flashes or when it's the most disruptive for you, right? Can anyone relate? And so because I have a niche and an ideal client and a persistent painful problem, I'm now able to take those content pillars and take one symptom and repurpose it 5 different ways. So now, for example, I take the post on how I got rid of my hot flashes in 7 days. That's a reel. That is now a carousel. And that is now a static post. And so you can modify the headline a little bit, right? So you can, repurpose that one post 3 different ways for the following Mondays, right? Spread them out a little bit, but nobody pays that much attention. And again, remember how people use social media. At first, they don't see your feed. They see that individual post because they're scrolling. They never see the feed unless they click over, in which case they're going to see how I got rid of my hot flashes in 7 days. Then they're going to scroll down a bit and then they're going to say what I did to get rid of my hot flashes in just a week. Then they're going to scroll down again and they're going to see the static image post. In just 7 days, I got rid of my hot flashes. Let me tell you how I did it. Same content. but they're going to consume it in different ways because different people like different things. And then that cuts down on you having to constantly be creating all of this content. And so you write these captions one time with this call to action one time, and then you can repurpose it using different creatives, right? You take this one caption and you can even slightly modify it for the different content pillars. And this saves you a ton of time because you can repurpose it any which way. I mean, you could even repurpose the reel, you have all the text on the screen, then you have none of the text on the screen. Like, you can change up the music, you can put a different filter on it. Like, there's a ton of ways that you can repurpose content. And so that's how I want you to start thinking about it, is what are these staple pieces of content that I need, that I know is going to attract my ideal client, right? Hot flashes, overnight depression, like these types of things that are specific to your ideal client. And so it's going to be so much easier for you to sit down and brainstorm a whole month's worth of content, because now you have this dialed in ideal client and this dialed in niche and condition and the persistent painful problem. And so, for example, I have a post on my Instagram that did really well. It's a carousel. And I will wait, another week probably, and then I'm going to turn it into a reel. And then I'm going to turn it into a talking head piece of content. And then I'm going to turn it into a static post. And then I'll repost the carousel probably in about 60 days from now. And so we have these pieces of content that do well. We definitely want to repurpose them using different creatives, and we want to repurpose them in different ways so that, again, when you have a piece of content that does well, you repurpose it. Tactic number 5. This is probably the most important. This is the most maybe triggering of them all. And this is strategy over feelings. A little bit ago, I said you're going to just have to get over the apprehension you feel around using your Facebook personal page. If you don't want to use your Facebook personal page, don't use your Facebook personal page. Me personally, I want to use all of the free assets at my disposal so that when somebody Googles me, it doesn't matter what they click on, whether that's my personal page or my business page or my LinkedIn profile or my Instagram or my TikTok or the YouTube that I have or the podcast that I have, they get the same impression, right? It's like walking into a Starbucks. When you walk into a Starbucks, it doesn't matter where it is. You know exactly how it's going to smell. You know exactly how it's going to sound. You know exactly the service that you're going to get. You know exactly how to order your drink. Sometimes it's not made the exact same way, but it's the experience, it's that safety, it's that security, it's that sense of like, I know that I can trust this person. They are congruent across the board. And so we're going to have strategy over feelings, right? Create content strategically, not based on your feelings. And there's days where you're not going to feel creative. There's days where you're going to have a little bit of writer's block. This is why it's so important to understand how to create content, because on the days where you're like, I got no time, I'm not feeling it, you can repost content. You can go and look at, 30 days ago, 60 days ago, a carousel that did well or a reel that did well, put a different filter on it, change the headline a little bit, post it, and there you go. We're not going to not post because you don't feel like it or because you don't have time. Right? We're not going to not do it because we're worried about friends or family. If you had a storefront, your family would likely be at the launch. They would likely be come and by on a Saturday to say hi to you. They would likely be referring everyone and their mother to you because they were so proud that you have a storefront, that you have a restaurant, that you opened up your own boutique. This is no different. And so instead of being nervous that we're going to piss our family and friends off because you're posting life-changing content on your Facebook personal page, we're now going to be really excited about the fact that you will be posting life-changing content on your personal Facebook page, and assume that friends and family will be equally as excited and happy and supportive because this is your career. because this is the thing that you've chosen to do. And if they happen to be annoyed by it, they can literally just hit that unfollow button and they won't see your content anymore. So we're not going to have feelings about our friends and our family, and we're not going to be worried about what even our peers and our colleagues think, because your business is not for them. They already know how to change their own life. They already know what to do. Your content is for your ideal client. It comes from this place of wanting to serve. It comes from this place of knowing that your experience, that your wisdom, that your story must be shared, because in sharing your story, you are validating someone else's lived experience, and that is everything. All people want to know is that what they are going through is real and valid, and that they are not alone. And so by sharing your story, by sharing your brand, by sharing your content, you are transforming lives, whether people pay you or not, by simply posting on social media. And for me, the best part about it is I'll never know. Unless somebody sends me, a DM or something like that, I don't know. But I know people are consuming my content, and I know that it's having an impact because I know what it is to consume other people's content and it have an impact on me. I've never reached out to them and thanked them, but they've either changed my perspective on something, they've educated me, they've, brought me down a rabbit hole where I then learned something, or I signed up to work with them. Like, if you've been changed by somebody else's content, then why wouldn't your content have the same effect on the people that are following you? And so tactic number 5 is strategy over feelings. And you're going to create content for your ideal client. You're not going to judge yourself on whether it's good or bad or anything. You are just going to focus on producing content and getting better and better at it every single day. So I hope those tactics were helpful. I hope that you will use them to boost your online coaching business. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.